evening. Well, actually, good evening, good morning. Buenas noches, buenos dias, buenas tardes.
So, should we get straight to it? Because I've got the opportunity to inquire, if that's okay,
Yeah.
more about you
Yeah.
and what you do. And we've never really dug deep on you and what you're about. So I'm excited to do that.
Sure.
And um, so let's get started with why you're at where you're at now. What's your background and how did you get to three C's healing? And I mean, that's probably a really long life, but if you could break it down into small
Sure.
chunks.
I've always been gifted. I've always been able to see through the veil. I've always had clairsentient clairs. So my awakening wasn't necessarily probably like a classic awakening, right? I've always questioned things. I've always been the one that kind of goes against the grain. Um, I've just never been one that's like just gone with things. And the thing is like I was raised in a very strict religion. So, that's not normal, right? My programming should have been go with the flow, don't question things. And the one thing I've always had a connection with is God, right? And so being raised in such a staunch religion, I started to question my faith. And
Mm,
I had a complete you know, almost um, almost like a faith crisis in a sense, back in probably 2017, 2016. I had just had my last baby. I have two children, and with each child you have a form of awakening. At least
yeah.
that's been my experience. Is so like with my son, I had an awakening. I started to tap back into my gifts. I started to be able to um, really dive into those parts and pieces of myself instead of being so terrified. I always explain it to people like this. Everyone has seen the movie Frozen, right? And she has all of these incredible gifts. Well, when she doesn't understand her gifts and she doesn't she hides her gifts, what happens? Her gifts become more powerful, right? It's like the shadowy aspects of ourselves. So we just and
Mm,
it's uncontrollable. Well, that's what was happening to me. It was like I was having all of these bombarded energies coming in, and I needed to figure out how to quote contain them, or I thought close them off, right? So I started to work with a coach, and I started to my thing with her was I want to build healthy relationships. I want to know what it's like to have healthy relationships. I was married already. Obviously, I had just had a son, and I wanted to learn what that looked like. While simultaneously, I was getting my bachelor's degree in education. So I have a dual bachelor's in special education and elementary education. I've taught school, so teaching is more. That's what I kind of am here to do, is to teach people. So I went and got my certification, and got finished my teaching degree. My son was like 1.5 when I finished, and that's what I thought I was going to be. Thought I was going to be an elementary teacher or a special education teacher, and teaching children. Well, I did 1 year as a teacher and was like, nope, I cannot do this. I cannot, I cannot do this. I can't do with the clicks. I can't do with the cattiness. I can't do with, I'm in an area that's like really strong, like a lot of religious people, Christianity. And I'm not at that point, like we were out of religion at that point. Um, I hadn't broken down my faith, like what I was or what I believed or what I didn't believe, right? But like I knew there was an other side because I could communicate with the other side, right? I could connect with people who had passed on and know details of people's lives without ever having much of a conversation. I could read people like
mm,
nobody else. Like I could literally connect with someone and know that person doesn't have a good heart or this person does have a good heart, right? Like I could feel that connection immediately, and it was a connection that I couldn't describe to anybody, right? But I also was raised in a very um I have two parents that are very loving, but they also have their stuff, right? And as I've healed, I've understood that, right? Like I understand where my parents were at, um but it's being raised in the religion I was raised in. It was a lot. So I'm getting emotional, but
Don't
as I started to break down
let's
my
do that.
religion,
Let's do that, because
yeah,
literally I've had a day today when I just, because there's been stuff for me, and the
yeah,
crying, like, just
yeah,
don't feel scared to like let that flow, baby, because I know we can just use this as like a mass awakening using your
right.
energy, but
Um,
because I totally get it, totally get it.
so
So those cages were just holding you
yeah,
in, and anyone that's watching this that knows you or is a healer of any kind, or has a mission that is so big, is going to completely, like, totally understand what that feeling is
yeah,
right there that you have right
yeah.
now. Yeah.
So it was like you can feel everybody. Like my clairsentient is probably
Mm.
one of my clairvisual and my clairsentient are my two strongest clairs. And I could feel as I went into like public places, I can feel the friction, right? I can feel the resistance that I feel in society. And I know I'm not alone. I know a lot of star seeds feel this way. I know a lot of people in their awakening feel alone. Um, and I know this is exactly how people feel, right? This is just me, 12 years ago. It's been
Yeah.
a while, right?
Yeah.
Um,
God.
but as I awakened, right? I woke up to pharmaceuticals, and I had a horrible birthing experience with my oldest, and I was like, I will never do that again. Right? Like, you learn through things, and you learn how to curate your own reality, right? And so what I do as a healer is, my son back in 2020 was diagnosed with type 1 diabetes, and COVID was already just kind of a shit show anyways, right? So
Mm.
we just added more responsibility as a mom, to our lives. And so that was also an awakening, right? Because then I had to learn that I couldn't go into survival, because diabetes, having a child with any medical sensitivities, any parent watching this will totally understand. It puts you into survival, right? Because it's like, I can't control anything. I can't control, you can literally eat the same thing every single day, and your blood sugar will react differently every single day. Like, it's not a one size fits all. That's what people don't really understand. It's like, oh, just cut out this or cut out that. It's like, that's not how it works with diabetes. So I had to learn. That was probably another wave of awakening, because I had to learn not to be in survival, right? Like, I had to learn, what am I doing with my life? Like, why am I just wasting my gifts away? Why, I'm really gifted. Why am I just sitting on the sidelines watching people expand, where I'm sitting here going like, I'm too scared to share my gifts with anybody, because I've been told, they're evil or demonic or whatever, right? And so I decided, the end of that Christmas. So he was diagnosed. It will be 4 years here. I think his anniversary is like the 10th. And so the end of the year, I said, I'm gonna learn to really utilize my gifts. I'm gonna really step into me. And so I made that choice, and I sat down and I wrote down exactly what I was going to do. I was going to go on a retreat. I was going to go by myself, which, by the way, I never do. I never do anything by myself. I'm a mom. I homeschool. I have two
Difficult
kids,
for
right? Like,
mom. Yeah.
yeah, like,
Mm.
it's my kids are involved in things.
Mm.
My kids are my whole world. And so I went on a retreat, and I had a complete awakening. Yeah,
I've just
and
got
it was,
goosebumps. Mm.
yeah,
I've
and
seen
so,
it. I've seen it so many times. The
yeah,
same
and
space is there.
yeah,
Yeah.
and it wasn't, it was just an ability to just be myself, right? Like,
Yeah.
I didn't have to hide my gifts, because they weren't considered weird, right? They weren't considered demonic. I could be myself, because other people want to be like that, right? People want to develop those gifts. People want to have those gifts, and I just have them, right?
Mm.
So I like realized at that point, like, wow, I'm really gifted. the medium, we ended up doing kind of like a duel. The person they hired, she asked me to come with her, and we started channeling different spirits and doing mediumship readings. Well, after that, that's how 3Cs was created. Was I got asked after that, hey, what do you charge for a reading? And I was like, I've never charged for a reading. I don't know, $25. like I had no idea.
Snap in there, baby.
Right? Yeah. so and so I called my husband and I told him, and I was like, I was actually really good at this. Like, I'm really good at this. And he's like, well, yeah, like you picked up spirits for me before and you didn't know anything. Like, you're really, like, I'm a clairsentient physical medium. Um, and never had to have had any training, never have been coached, like, just that's natural to me. And so anyways, I met a couple people there. I met a hypnotherapist who taught hypnotherapy, and I was like, oh my gosh, I want to have a session with you. So we ended up doing a trade where I read something for her and she did a hypno session on me, and I immediately felt relief. For the first time in my life, talk therapy, coaching, talking, I'd had expansion, like I've had consciousness awareness, but I'd never had felt like the alchemy of healing something in the subconscious is life changing.
Yeah, right.
It's like nothing you've ever experienced. And I think anyone who could relate to that, that's had hypnotherapy or like plant medicine. I would say it's probably more common now than what it was, 5 years ago that I experienced it. But it was life changing. I woke up the next day and I was like, I'm a different person. Like I think differently. And then I paid her for a few more sessions, and I was like, I've got to learn. Here's the trailblazer in me. I was like, I got to learn how to do this and do this myself. Yeah.
Not
And
easy.
so
Not easy.
Yeah, so I got a couple more sessions from her. And in the end of that year, my husband said, you woke up one day, Michelle, and you were completely a different person. He's like, I don't know how to describe it. It was like a switch. He's like, you're more calm. You respond differently. You react differently. Even like my facial features they've changed over the years, where like, like things just change in your body that you can't explain, right? Like you look differently, you respond differently, energy is different. And I tell people this, I said, the more you heal, the younger you look, because stress and anxiety age you. So the more you heal, the less you age, right?
Right.
Yep.
Yeah.
And so I started to do hypnotherapy. I got trained in hypnotherapy and I couldn't get enough of it. I wanted to be trained in every type of hypnotherapy there was out there. I wanted to know how to work with the subconscious, because I knew the subconscious was how people change their reality. It's how you change your perception. And it's really interesting because people always ask me, how much plant medicine, Michelle, have you done? I've done none. No. Hypnotherapy is just as effective, if not more effective, than plant therapy, because you're consciously and you're moving through things. And so I started to realize at that point that I could download how to do my own modalities. I could figure out how to move energy, because I was so clairvoyant. I could see things in the quantum field. And I realized at that point, I'm putting people into a regression, and I'm literally seeing through my mind's eye exactly what they're describing. Right. So if someone's like, I'm in Egypt, I already knew they were in Egypt. And I was like, this is different than what I had with the person who did hypnotherapy. I mean, who's phenomenal. But it was different. I was able to see what they were seeing. And I thought, this is interesting, because if I'm able to see what they're seeing without having any form of communication, then it has to be real, right? This has to be real. This quantum energy is real. And so I started to play with doing my own inner work. So I would get a trigger and I would come into my office and I would figure out and be like a detective of, where did this come from? What lifetime? Is this ancestral, or is this my lifetime? Is this, what is this energy? Where did it come from? How do I have this? What is the learning? And I started to learn, pretty much teach myself and downloading with my higher self how to heal my own experiences in life with triggering, right? And the one thing that I found was, eventually I figured out I was doing quantum healing, because I figured out that I didn't need to go into a regression. I didn't need to put myself into trance, hypothetically, like a 20-minute trance. I could go there immediately, because
Yeah.
energy is at 0 point. It's quantum.
Yeah.
So you don't have to wait. So when I would release an entity off me, or even a client, I expected it to be at 0 point, because I knew that was possible. And so then I started to curate my own modality, which is, I call it matrix recoding, because it's
Yeah.
about
My next
recoding
question.
the computer system within you. So
Mm.
I believe there's only two parts of us that are physical. It's your mind and your ego. And most people believe the ego is bad. But what I found when I asked the ego was, ego, are you bad? And it said, no, I am just the person that's directing your life.
It's great.
You're telling me what to
It's great.
direct.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's the
So
it's the gatekeeper to the ego is the gatekeeper to your growth. So yeah, it's not bad. And I think that's a really interesting point, like to point out that people have a preconceived message that ego is a bad thing, and that's why we're so scared of triggers and bad feelings and upset and resistance. For me, resistance is such a beautiful word, because on the other side of it there's magic.
yeah.
So yeah, it is, carry on. Beautiful.
Yeah. So I had a mentor teach me how to play with my ego.
Mhm.
And I was like, oh, wow, your ego is not the victim, villain, or the hero at all. Actually, that's just pride. That's the mind. That's the matrix. Your ego actually can be programmed to do whatever you want it to be. So I started to play with my ego, and I started to rewrite stories. Like, what was my story on love? What was my story on caring? What was my story on work? What was my story on success? What's my story on love, giving, right? These are all stories we've been programmed to believe, right? The biggest one, I would say, every single person, unless you've done work, believes that hard work pays off. No, it doesn't. It doesn't always pay off. That is a lie. It does not. It depends on the energy. It depends on the belief of how well you think you did. If you don't think you did good enough, then you perceive that into your reality. And so your beliefs are literally the gatekeeper of your reality. It's the only thing physical.
We have such a toxic message that comes out to us via whatever stream of information that's coming to you, that lack and striving for the great thing that you want is about, like, modern day slavery.
Yeah.
It's a modern day slavery in
Yeah.
a really intense, informed
Yeah.
field, and so the intensity that you were feeling just a minute ago really is make it, we're all linked by that sensitivity, that it's just too difficult to be great. It's just too difficult to break out of well, it's not, it's there already. It's sat waiting for you to say,
Yeah.
I'm it.
Yeah.
And so what advice could you give someone who's looking at this right now, knowing, like, we are very connected because we have a mission? It's an unspoken thing. We have a mission in life to break out of this space. What advice would you give someone who's watching this, who's thinking, it's in me, Michelle, this thing that I need to do, it's in me, but there's this holding me back, and there's my job, and then there's my family that don't agree with me, and my friends are going to laugh at me, and I know all those basic kind of like 3D things. Where do they start?
I think you start with the belief of who you are. What are
Yeah,
you?
go back to the
Who are you?
beginning. Mm,
You start at the beginning. You start at who you are,
mm.
and you have to learn to love yourself, because you know what? You have to be okay being alone, because that is the biggest lesson I've learned, is you have to love being alone. In fact, I will literally say, oh, I need my alone time, because it's where I'm able to be in my own frequency, especially as a mom. Um, you know, I'm going 90 miles an hour, you know, this, like, I just move all the time. And that's why when I learned how to do quantum healing, by the way, I didn't learn it from anyone physical here, right? I learned it from doing my own sightseeing experience. And I teach this. I have my own certification now where I teach people how to literally do their own quantum healing, where they can also take it and make it a business, right? Because once you learn how to heal yourself, that's your superpower, because it doesn't matter what you're experiencing. You have the power to come back into here. You have the power to take whatever crappy situation is experienced and say, this is what the universe was teaching me. This is what God was teaching me. Or, oh, this is what I needed to learn in that experience. And I probably need to experience that again so that I can make sure I learned it. And so I tell people, when you're repeating a pattern, even if you've reprogrammed it and you continue to move in that direction instead of, you know, going against the grain, it's going to be uncomfortable. It's going to be uncomfortable the first time you tell someone who you thought was the love of your life and your very best friend or the family members that, I see dead people, you know, like, I see dead people.
What do we do now?
Right? I communicate. Yeah, I communicate with people who aren't there. I communicate with multidimensional beings. I can clairvoyantly see things that have happened in the past without having to, you know, do the rigorous of go to the Akashic records, open up the book, right? Be very, very rigorous. I just go there. You want to know why? Because I believe you can go anywhere at any time, because we're all interconnected. It's my beliefs. So work with your beliefs of who you are and what you like and what you don't like. Because you know what? There's a lot of freaking people out there that don't know who the hell they are.
And it's being comfortable, being uncomfortable in that situation where you might be just sat alone by yourself at some point, feeling those edges, feeling your ego go.
Yeah.
So who are you now then, when your support team's not around? So who are you now then, when you haven't got someone going, oh my God, you're great. Who are you now when you haven't got your kids going, mom? Who are you now when you're sat and your tears are falling from your eyes and you know deep down in your soul that there is something so powerful that you have to do? You sit with it. You sit with it until it rises and it resurfaces, because that's when, like we talk about, you hear manifestation all over social media. But there's work to do leading up to that point where you're at, where the quantum just is just that with you for the whole time. And it's available to everybody, but like, it's not hard. It's just, there's gateways for you to move through. There's tasks, and there's work that you have to do in order to move through. And most of it is bringing you back to who you are at your core, because like you say, there's billions people out there who don't know who they are. So can you tell us, we have a shadow dancing? Wow, I love it. Can you explain what that is to people?
Sure.
But we'll wrap
up. Shadow Dancers is my free community. I dealt with severe depression most of my life, I would say. I have dealt with a lot of dark energy around my field for a lot of my life. It wasn't that I wasn't a happy child. It was just that when you're a matrix disruptor, someone who's here to break the system, you don't fit into society ever. And raising two little humans that are the same way. And when you do finally fit, like, that's all I wanted my whole life, was for people to like me, right? Like, what's not to like? I'm a good person. I don't understand why people don't like me. You want to know why people don't like me? because my light's a little too damn bright for a lot of people that are sitting in that darkness. And I have come to understand it.
This is it.
Right? I've understood that power, right? And I tell people all the time when they're like, oh, you're just a little too much, Michelle, or oh, you actually charge too much, because I live in an area that's kind of the theme. And you know what I say to those people? I don't want to water myself down when I get into a one-on-one session with someone. You're getting all of this. You're getting the fast moving. We are moving through energy. We are busting through belief systems, and you're going to come out as an entirely different person in one session. In fact, most of the time it takes me 20 minutes, and I sit there for the next 40 minutes BSing with somebody because it's so quick. I'm not even joking. Like,
Just putting the fingers on top of the work. I love it.
Don't jump into a container with me if you don't want to dive deep into your bullshit, because that is probably one of my biggest gifts is I see through distortion. I can see through the masks and the layers, and I can tell you the first time I jump into a container with somebody, they start listing their issues and they start, doing their things that they want to talk about, and I know exactly what it is immediately. I see through it immensely. Yeah. But the thing is, I've always been that way. So when someone's trying to distort, I mean, we all know it. Back to grade school, there was always the popular girl and everybody liked her, but she's fake as shit, right? Like everyone, she would tell you right? It's the same story. It's the same story. Everybody has the same story as a child growing up. Doesn't matter where you've grown up. It doesn't, I have clients all over the world. It's the same story. It is, I wasn't enough.
Yeah.
I wasn't enough. I didn't fit in. I had high expectations, or I had high expectations and I didn't meet them. Perfectionism, right? It's always this unworthiness of I had to hide who I was to survive. And if you don't have that story, then you had emotionally available parents that were able to communicate in a loving and effective way. And I'm going to tell you, that doesn't exist very often. And it's not their fault. It's not the parents' fault.
Both areas, both institutions, schooling, education, and the system, and then the home life institution, both doing the very best they can at the time that we were, but moving between one box to another box, like the most freedom
to another
that
box.
School, religion,
friendship,
all these boxes.
It's all the boxes, right?
Yeah.
And now you have people like myself and you. We're literally we're flying a huge jet with thousands of people that are on it, and we're the pilots, and we're turning it off autopilot, and we're going in blind. That's what we're doing as trailblazers. Is we're literally going in blind, trying to figure out how to change the system, how to change and heal who we are, how to be a more conscious parent, how to be more loving, how to be interconnected as oneness. That's literally a trailblazer.
I feel like, I feel like disruptive. That's where I would sit in the electrical system, is the one that's just going like blocking it. And that's alone. That's really alone, and it can be quite difficult. But the main thing is, it's like we can communicate like this, and even if there's just one person who resonates and shifts, or a matrix of people that energetically shift just in a matter of minutes through this, it means everything. So thank you so much for sharing your time, because it's so valuable and I appreciate it so much. And I love the fact that I get to share with you the journey of Healy, which we haven't mentioned. And if anyone hasn't heard of Healy, it is a frequency device, a therapy device. So do you use that with any of your clients? Do you ever get the opportunity to use that? No.
I don't use that on clients. Not super often. I bought the Healy for my own family. Like it's So when I do energetic clearings, I work in the bioenergetic system. So and it's really interesting because I actually didn't know the Healy ran in that system until maybe a year ago. So when I clear out energetic frequencies, I actually say, as I run light and I do technology through a person's system, right? I would say, and I bring in pink light and I code light because I speak light language. And so I start moving light codes. You'll see my hands move
Yeah.
and I start moving. In fact, my hands, I'm not doing anything with my hand. My hand's actually coding right now. As I'm saying, I'm recoding light with the bioenergetic system. So my hand moves automatically. I don't control it. It moves and it just starts moving. And what it's doing is actually creating light code systems and sacred geometry that's actually recoding as you're listening to me talk right now. And you may feel like you need to yawn right now or sigh, or you may feel like energy's moving through
I
your
just
body.
got to start
But it's,
smiling.
yeah, yeah. So as you recode, I start moving energy. Well, the Healy is like that too. So it
Yeah.
works through an energetic frequency and it runs a frequency that works for specific parts of the body. So I love the Healy. I think every single person should own a frequency device. I think they're the wave of the future.
Yeah.
Because you can't always have, maybe you don't have light language yet. Maybe you don't understand how to move energy yet. Maybe you don't know how to do those things. But you know what? Even as someone who does know how to do all of those things and how to recode and how to move frequency and how to work in the quantum fields and release and whatever, the Healy is so wonderful when I don't have time to do energy work on my kids, or I don't have time to do, I need to receive. So I get my Healy, which I didn't bring today, but it's a little, it fits in your hand. It's little tiny. It's little tiny. I've owned mine for over 3 years. It still works great. I can run that on my husband. I just put it on picture and I run it on my husband when he's out of town. My son, who's a diabetic, was highly allergic to the glue and the adhesive from the sensors and the different things that are on the medical taping. He was highly allergic. He was completely broke out in rashes. And if I run the skin Healy on him, his skin heals immensely. In fact, it actually got rid of warts off his hands. I think he had a wart or maybe two warts. It completely removed them. If you have any type of rashing system, like rashing or eczema, that will completely, at least from my experience, I can't guarantee that it will work for you. That's how everything works in energy, but it completely removed the allergic reaction for him. Another time my daughter was in the middle of the night and she was just puking and I was like, this is so weird, like she's not even running a fever, why is she puking? And I ended up looking up the blue coach, where you can find out what system is best for them. So I ran that on her and ended up showing up that she was having a reaction to an electrosensitivity. Well, we had been having thunderstorms all that evening, and so her system couldn't handle the electricity in her frequency. Her bioenergetic system couldn't handle the electricity coming into her field. Well, I can put energetic boundaries and all these things around my children, but sometimes it's nice to have that help. It's nice to have, I've done the deep cycles where I've done, like, I think it's a 15-day detox. Amazing, right? And I just literally, like, sit in my bed and I ran sleep things. I ran all sorts of things on the Healy. And like I said, I've had a Healy for 3 years. We use it all the time. And it's amazing. Like I think every single person should own one.
Absolutely. And I think especially for people like yourself who are healers, and they do describe it as the healer's healer. It's something that works in real time with your bioenergetic field and what your capacity needs for an energetic shift. Not just the cookie cutter, one fits all, run this microcurrent and you'll be fixed, and every human, like the pill. It's not, it tunes into your sensitivity and what's needed. So yeah, I totally understand why that would be so beneficial to the family. So yeah, that really wise words there.
Yeah. And I think it's really helpful because, like, my son doesn't like a lot of energy work done, but he'll let me run the Healy on him.
Because it's
So
cool.
he doesn't like me to speak light language. He doesn't like that, which I totally honor. So I run the Healy on him, and he'll ask for it. Like if my kids are sick, we'll figure out, you know, what's best for them through the Blue Coach or whatever. And I'll run that. My mother-in-law has it, and she even has the Mag Healy. And I know she's like, I could just run frequencies on me all day. I could just run this thing all day. And it's like, I mean, you shouldn't run it all day, but
No. You have a break.
It's very nice to receive, you know, and it's a tool that I think is really affordable, honestly. I mean, think about how much money you spend, you know, going to Starbucks every day, and you know, or coffee, and not saying that there's any shame around that, because there isn't, but if you really want to take control, if you really want to take control of your life, it has so many endless possibilities. And really, we're moving into an era of quantum, in our banking system, in our, you know, our healing, and we know this. We know that the medical industry is failing most people, right? Like we know that, and there's so many scientific evidence with the Healy that people need to just look into. Like people think it's not woo woo. There's science to back it up, like true hardcore science that says, for example, I ran the skin frequency on my son. He no longer has a reaction to the glue. We're no longer getting burns and things. That's evidence. I don't have to prove that to anybody. That's evidence.
You know, he has changed. His whole dynamic has changed. He doesn't need to be sensitive to that thing anymore. His body doesn't have to protect him from something that is seen as foreign, because he has the strength, the capacity to protect himself through that shift, that energetic shift that's occurred. So, you know, it's like taking into your own hands your own healing. And obviously that's going to affect the medical system. Frequency has been around since the 1920s, for the general public to use, but taken back by, I think it was Rockefeller, who decided that we were going to be a biochemical hospital, universities. The frequency was just taken out of the picture, and now, like, we've actually got quantum entanglement as something that there is a Nobel Prize for. So I mean, we are shifting into a new time of healing and caring and looking out for ourselves. So it isn't just based on woo woo, and if that's the term that people want to use, it is based on the science is there. It is there. It's in black and white. So thank you so much, Michelle. I'd love to do this again with you. Maybe we could hold a healing session or something online. That would be beautiful. But most appreciative of your time and your knowledge, and I'll speak to you soon.
Nice connecting. See you later, B.
Speak soon. Bye.
Bye-bye.